Hey, Ankit, thank you so much for the introduction. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm happy that Ethika invited me for these quick sessions. I do a lot of these live sessions, so I hope it will be engaging for all of you. It's going to be a lot about giving you the framework you need to build this type of agents, and then also a lot of showing you what the agent can do in practice, so that you can leave with some practical idea of something you could build today, right after this session. Just a quick introduction about myself. Hi, I'm Pietro. I'm originally from Italy. I run an AI education business. We do courses, company training, focused exclusively on non-technical users. Okay, I've trained team at Gartner, TikTok, ServiceNow, Johnson & Johnson, Lattice. My public training have, as Ankit also mentioned, trained over 2,000 people in the last 6 months. Before starting the training company, which I started 6 months ago, I was doing technical implementation inside companies. So I was on the other side, and we have sold that company to a large US multimedia group. As Ankit said, I also produce a lot of educational content. I have an audience of over 50,000 people. Since the last time Ankit and I spoke about this, I had 20K 3 months ago, and things went really well. And now I can reach over 500,000 people every month through Substack, LinkedIn, and YouTube. That's enough about me. Today is really not about me, but it's about talking about AI agents and workplace automation. So I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen, and I'm gonna just check with you that you all can see it, and then we'll start with the presentation. Just give me a second so I can set it up. Okay, full screen. Perfect. Can you all see my screen? Can you give me a thumbs up or put it in the chat if you can see it? Perfect. I see some yes. Thank you, Pooja. Thank you, Amit. Thank you, MD. Thank you, everyone. So a quick expectation setting for this workshop so you know what you're working into and what we will be doing in the next 60 minutes, okay? The session will be fast and dense. I can see someone is mentioning that you can't hear me well. Can you guys confirm if it's my issue on my side or on his side? Can everybody hear me well? Put something in the chat. Okay, perfect. Okay, I see it's good. So it must be on your side. It might be on your side, Bhavani. Hopefully you can fix it. Let's get back to expectation setting. So 60 minutes is going to be fast and dense. We're going to cover for 15, maximum 20 minutes, a bit of framework introduction of the status of AI for non-technical people today, as in how do technical people use AI in August 2026. And then we'll also see many live examples in which I will do demonstration of simple and slightly more complex stuff which you can build and use today. For the examples, I will be use Claude as an interface, but everything we see in Claude, you will be able to replicate in Copilot, in ChatGPT for work, in Codex. Okay, so I need an interface to show, and most of the people today which are adopting AI prefer to use Claude, but you can replicate literally everything we're seeing today into any other of the major ecosystem, LLM ecosystem. The session today is targeted, and Ankit also mentioned it, for non-technical people. So this will be the perspective which we will adopt. For example, we will not be talking about Claude Code in this session. We'll be talking about Claude Cowork. We'll be talking about ChatGPT for work. We will not be talking about building and designing code. Okay, we'll be taking the perspective of non-technical people. It will be recorded, okay? So before the question come, I want to address it. Everything will be recorded. The team from Ethika will also send it to all of you after, so you can keep it for reference if you want to rewatch it, if you want to slow it down, if you want to rewatch the examples after we have built them. You can also screenshot everything on my slides and share it wherever you want. I'm always very open with the content and the knowledge I share in this session. And you guys can keep the chat going, and Kit and the Ethika team will be overseeing the chat while I'm presenting. I might not see your question. I will make pauses to respond to any question you guys have. And anyway, at the end, I will keep 10-15 minutes just for Q&A. Perfect. So unless someone has a question, I don't see any question in the chat, we're going to be starting with the actual topic of today's presentation. As of August 2026, you can see on the screen some of the tasks that most of the people use AI for in their day-to-day as non-technical people. Most of you are already pretty familiar with all of these, have already tried writing, generating images, doing research, doing analysis, okay? Why I always start with this slide, even if I'm not going to spend even a minute on this, I always want to say that it's really important to have a good picture, a good overview of what AI is good at to be able to actually implement it in your day-to-day. This means that if you are dealing with classification of information, extraction of information, summarization of information, AI is a great fit. If you're dealing with, I don't know, something like computer control or video generation, you need a full set of additional skill, which you don't see reflected on this slide, right? So I just leave these to you for reference to give you an idea of, okay, these are the 12 items which you should always do with AI. Everything that pertains to this, you should use AI in some part or form. I'm not saying you, for example, if you write content, you don't need to replace everything. You need to keep your human interaction, but AI is more than capable to assist you in the task. Hence, you should be using it in your day-to-day. More important and more interesting, this is basically the original framework we're going to start this session with. There are three ways in which non-technical people, and this is exclusively for non-technical people, use AI in their day-to-day. You should be able to recognize these three patterns of interaction and understand which pattern to use for which task. If you can match the right task with the right interface, you'll be much more productive and your results will be much, much stronger. Okay, so you see them on the screen. There are three ways in which non-technical people use AI today. Number one, via chatbot. Number two, via delegation of one-off tasks to a copilot. Number three, the creation of workflows. Don't worry if any of this term is not familiar to you. We'll get into the depth of the three of them in a second. So the first one is chatting with AI. We are all very familiar. I'm sure all 288 people which are in this call today have tried or use in their day-to-day a chatbot, be it ChatGPT, be it Claude, be it Gemini, or be Microsoft Copilot. We have all used the chatbot. The important thing and what I want you to realize is the value when you interact with the chatbot, okay, with ChatGPT, for example, the value lays in the conversation you have with the AI. As in, you ask a question, you receive an answer from the AI, okay? It's a back and forth with the AI, and the result is an output of the conversation that gives you more information, makes you more informed, so that then you can go outside of the chatbot and perform whatever task. For example, you are creating a presentation for your management, you're creating a performance review for the people in your team. You chat with the AI to understand how to structure it, what information to put, selecting the information, but then you go outside the chatbot and you build the presentation yourself. Okay, so this is the first type of interface we are all very familiar with, but at the same time, it's not the most valuable for non-technical people because you are still doing the task yourself, okay? The value lies in the conversation when you talk with a chatbot and not in the performing of any specific task which you're trying to do. The second type of interaction is the most interesting one, and the one we'll also spend the most time exemplificating later during the session in the more practical part of this session, and it consists in assigning a task to the AI so that it performs it on your behalf. So with the chatbot, we said the value lays in the conversation, the back and forth you have with AI. With the delegation of one-off task to a copilot, the value shifts from chatting with the AI to be more informed to take the decision to assigning the full task to the AI so that the AI can perform the task on your behalf. So you're still conversating with the AI, but you're conversating with the AI to give the AI instructions of what it needs to perform on your behalf. In this case, if you're trying to create a presentation, you wouldn't just ask question, hey, how do I structure it? What information do you recommend I insert in this presentation? How to visualize it? You would ask, hey, these are the information I have, help me select them, and then build the presentation, okay? An outcome of using the delegation of one-off task, an ideal outcome of this paradigm of interaction is assigning a task, and you are happy when the task is completed to a point where you are happy with the result. So I'm not asking for information to perform the task. I'm asking the AI to perform the task on my behalf. This can be creating a presentation like the example we have just done. At the same time, it could be, hey, generate a report, generate a proposal for a customer, or interact with some of my tools, create this email in my inbox, send a calendar invite to this person, or I don't know, update if you're in sales, update my CRM, including this information which I have in my call transcript. Okay, so instead of chatting with the AI, you're assigning tasks to the AI, and the AI perform those tasks on your behalf. Okay, this is the second pattern of interaction. And to connect it to something concrete, if you guys have used Claude, for example, and then I'll make the example also with ChatGPT in a second. If you have used Claude, Claude has a chatbot, okay? We have all tested the Claude chatbot, and then it has what's called the Claude Cowork, okay? Claude Cowork is an interface built on purpose for delegation of one-off tasks. So while with the chatbot, Claude Chat or ChatGPT, normally you have back and forth to help you perform the task, write a post, or do something that happens in chat. With by using Claude Cowork, ChatGPT for Work, or Microsoft Cowork, you would be assigning the AI a task, and the AI performs that task on your behalf. The third, and then I will stop to ask for questions. So if you have any, please start putting them in the chat. The third and last paradigm that non-technical people use and adopt in their day-to-day to make their job easier and to be able to leverage really AI in their day-to-day is the creation of workflows. Okay, as compared to delegation of one-off task, we mentioned that for a delegation of one-off task, the value lies in the task they accomplish for you on your behalf. When you create a workflow, the value lies in the automatic and repeated tasks they accomplish. Okay, so when you are creating a workflow, instead of relying on the AI making decisions for you along the process, you structure step by step what will happen and what will AI will do at every step. Okay, so if we compare, hey, I'm assigning to Claude Cowork or ChatGPT for Work a task to do on my behalf, for example, create a post for LinkedIn. And if you just assign it, the AI will take a lot of decision along the process and will create the final post for you. If you want to create and duplicate the same process by creating a workflow, you would define all of the steps exactly at which point the AI will do what. Okay, in terms of hey, first you need to reason on this article which I read. Second, you need to offer me 3 options. Third, you need to use the option which I selected based on my feedback to generate a first version of the post.
Sorry for the interruptions. People are saying like you are a little bit faster. So if you could.
Perfect. Yes, sure. Happy to slow down. Okay. So when we are creating a workflow, we are defining and being more deterministic on what the AI needs to do. Okay. So if we are comparing delegating one-off task to a copilot, and to, hey, we are just creating a workflow and defining step by step what will happen at which point, I am going to be much more deterministic on what will happen at which point. Okay, as in, I will have much more control on the final outcome. Okay, so there are some tasks which are fit for the delegation of one-off tasks, and some tasks which are fit for the creation of a workflow. And yes, sure, I see someone in the chat is also asking for an examples, but and I'm happy to provide some now, and then we'll do even more later. Okay, so think about something like, hey, I have a form on my website. Whenever someone submits that form, 2 minutes after the form is submitted, I want 4 things to happen. I want to do research on the person who have submitted that specific form. I want to then, based on the research that I want the AI to do, I want to identify whether that person is a fit with my ideal customer profile or not. And if it's a fit, and only if it's a fit, I want to send him immediately an email offering a call to help him move to the next steps. Okay, just a random examples. But whenever a form is submitted, you want these steps to happen. And while AI plays a part along these steps, as in it needs to qualify, needs to understand who he is, it's really important that these steps happen in a very deterministic way, happens in a super, super structured flow. It always automatically and repeatedly happens in the very same way. Okay, so it's a very structured task where AI plays a role that always happens and need to happen in the very same way. An example of hey, I'm creating, for example, my newsletter. The process to create my newsletter is a process I want to assist with AI. Okay. Yet, whenever I create a newsletter for my audience, or you can compare this to, I don't know, anything else which you create, any content which you want to create, even a message for someone important in your team. Whenever you want to create that type of message, whenever I want to create my newsletter in my example, every time I do it, it will be slightly different. Okay. It needs more creative input. It needs more of my participation to do that specific task. Yes, I'm using AI to co-pilot me, to help me perform the task better in a faster way, do research, but I want to still be involved. It doesn't happen repeatedly and structured in the same structured way every time. I'm going to be needing the AI to assist me get to the final output of my newsletter is sent, but it needs more of my input. It needs to be less deterministic. It needs to have more freedom every time to create something different. Okay, so these are the two paradigms. And if we have to frame them one level deeper, we have basically a dichotomy between using a chatbot versus using agents. Okay, using a chatbot is AI that talks to you and the values in the conversation. When we are using agent, we have AI that works on our behalf. Okay, we assign a task to the AI, and the value lies in the task, in the completion of the task. Okay, when we talk about agents, so this right side of the specific slide, we have seen that we have two works with agent. The second and the third paradigm of interaction with the AI, which we have seen, are delegation of one-off tasks versus agentic workflow. Okay, these are two ways in which you can assign a task with the AI, and the AI will perform steps and get to a final point, which is, hey, the task was completed. Okay, so this is two ways of working with agents. The difference between these two is the level of control, the level of determinism that you give to the AI. In the agentic workflow, you build much more structured tasks. It's important that the tasks always happen in the same way, and you define every step of the way. In the delegation of one-off task, you give much more freedom to the AI. Okay, the AI has much more freedom to take decision and help you across the way. This is generally a better fit for more creative tasks. Okay, and here on the slide, and you can take a screenshot of this if you think this is useful for you. But in general, it's a summary of what we have just said. Okay, workflows are best for repetitive, well-defined tasks like routing, qualifying, drafting, and one-off task, delegation of one-off task using a copilot like ChatGPT for work or like Claude Cowork for work is best for complex, more open-ended tasks like planning, multi-step operation, whenever you want to have a higher level of involvement. And the other dimension, which I really want to spend a couple more seconds about, is the reliability and triggers. A workflow is highly predictable, easy to test and audit, and it triggers reliably whenever you are using it. Whenever you're interacting with the workflow, it's built for reliability and predictability. On the other side, whenever you're using something like Cloud Cowork, Copilot Cowork, or ChatGPT for Work, there are some options for you to schedule that specific process, any specific process to happen automatically, but it's much less reliable. It's less deterministic. The results will vary more run to run. So one more time, it's better for more complex, open-ended tasks when you need the AI to have a bigger reasoning part, when you want to leave more freedom to the AI to make more decision along the way, not in a super structured way as you have exemplified. Can you show a hands-on workflow setup for any example like you mentioned about the newsletter? I will show you some example later. If we have time, I'm also happy to show you what I personally use for my newsletter, which is something I actually generally do. Originally, I didn't build it into this specific presentation, but happy if we have time to show you exactly what I use for my newsletter. Can you explain with some more examples? Okay, happy to give you some more examples. Think about something super structured which you need to do on your daily basis. Okay, for example, let's suppose you are in customer support. Okay, and you receive a lot of emails. Okay, and it's really important that whenever you receive an email connected to a ticket, and any issue which any customer might be facing, anytime you receive an email in your inbox, what you want the AI to do is you want the AI to qualify the problem, understand if there's already an answer available in a database of customer queries which you have, and then based on whether it's found or not, route it to whoever will take care of responding to that specific ticket. Okay, this is a very structured process that always has to happen in the very same way. It's a repetitive, well-defined task, always happen in the same way. The AI plays an important role because it needs to understand, it needs to assess, it needs to use your database, query through your database. So there's an important role which the AI has, but it's very well defined in very predictable and repeated steps. At the same time, you need this workflow to run automatically on a repeated basis, and you need to be able to rely on it. Okay, it's really important that whenever you receive a ticket, you address it as fast as possible. Okay, so this would be definitely a fit for a workflow, more structured approach. If you're dealing with something that is more complex and open-ended, for example, you're building a financial model or you're building a presentation. In this case, you have a more complex, open-ended part where you want to have a much higher level of involvement, and you want the AI to have more freedom to take decision along the way. As in, wherever you create a presentation, sure, there are some things that will always stay the same. Hey, I want my logo, I want my visualization pattern, I want the slide to be structured in a specific way, the graphics to look in a specific way. But along a presentation, you have many more decisions to take. One time you might be doing a presentation for your stakeholders, another time you might be doing a presentation for a customer. You know, in all of this scenario, the process you go through to define exactly the content which you want to have in the presentation is naturally different. So instead of a workflow which always happens in the very same way, you would need to have something less deterministic, more open-ended. So you will have the AI help you select the information. Once you select the information and you do it with the AI will visualize them in the presentation, and then you will give feedback. And then based on that feedback, the AI and the copilot will do another iteration up until when you finish the task and the task is completed. Okay, so there is some structure, some information which you always use in the same way in this case, but at the same time, the final results, the completion of that specific task relies much more on your intervention, your control, and a level of determinism, a level of decision which the AI needs to have to take those specific decisions. I see another question. Can you give an example in accounting automation? Like GST filing, follow-up email, invoice generation automation, timesheet creation automation. For example, if you talk about accounting, and something which I personally do a lot, whenever I receive an email containing an invoice, okay, to my accounting account, email account. I want to direct that invoice to be stored and queried with the AI and then put all together into a Google Sheet where I map all of my monthly invoices, okay? So whenever I receive an invoice, that invoice has in the subject line something like invoice, I want to open the email, extract the attachment from the email, and then extract the information from that attachment and put them in a Google Sheet and store everything together, okay? This is, again, a very repetitive, well-defined task, which I want to always do in the very, very same way. Okay, so along this process, I can definitely use a workflow because it needs to happen, it needs to be reliable, it always happens in the same way, and I need determinism. I need to make sure that the numbers that end up in the Excel sheet are always the same, right? So I will building using a workflow. At the same time, if I have something different, for example, hey, I want to create invoices, okay? The process of creation of an invoice is a process which is more open-ended, as in it doesn't need to happen automatically. You will need to tell him, hey, this is the item which I'm selling, this is the price I'm putting for that specific item, this is the IBAN, the payment addresses of the account I need to receive this money. This is the address of the person who I'm sending the invoice to. Okay, it's structured. It always happens more or less in the same way, but it needs a lot more input. And in general, it's something you want to do proactively. Okay, whenever you need to. Especially if you sell services, right? If you sell a product, this might be slightly different. But if you sell services and you have one-to-one relation with your customer, this process is less deterministic. It needs to have more of your input, right? What exactly goes into the invoice depends that you're sending out depends on what you want to have, and it's a process which is a good fit for hey. I'm just going to speed up the process of me putting all of those information in a sheet by using a copilot or using a copilot in combination with a cloud skill, for example, or a skill in general if you're using ChatGPT for work, right? So this could be a couple of other examples. Another example of one-off task automation related to accounting would be, hey, I need to prepare a end of the quarter sum up of all of the expenses. Okay, this is really important. You want to have more control over it. I need to be involved. I need to be checking that at every step of the way things happen in the same way. But the job of completing a final Excel and eventually also a presentation that matches with Excel to present it to your management, whoever reviews the end of quarter books closing, you can do this with you would do this not with a workflow because it's not repetitive, it's not always happening the very same way. At time you'll have some type of cost, at time you'll have some other type of cost. You need the AI to have more determinism, take more decisions along that specific process. Okay, so you would go for a one-off task replication in combination with a skill, right? So additional information which always happen in the same way, plus your own input in giving the AI information which it needs from you. Yes. So moving to the next step, and then we'll get to a bit more of live examples. This is stack I use, right? You can replace anything with anything else, okay? Generally, chat and delegation of one-off task always happen in the same platform. If you pick the cloud ecosystem, you would use Cloud Chat and Cloud Cowork for delegation of one-off task. If you are on ChatGPT, you would have normal ChatGPT, ChatGPT for Work as a copilot. If you were on Copilot, you would have simple Microsoft Copilot, Copilot Cowork as an assistant who helps you delegate one-off tasks. The activity of building workflow happens outside this ecosystem, right? No ecosystem as of today. Gemini is going in the direction, but no other ecosystem has a proper workflow builder inside. Okay, so if you want to build workflow today, you would rely on third-party platform. There are many, and here are the two ones that are the most well-known. Zapier, which has been there for a very large amount of time, which is a best fit for simpler and more unexperienced user. And then you have an A10, which is a more dynamic and more sophisticated workflow builder for more complex solutions. If you're trying to automate and build a workflow around more complex solutions, okay? So the chat and the delegation of one-off tasks happens in the major LLM ecosystem of your choice, the one you have adopted within your company. The creation of workflow happen outside on a third-party tool. Eventually, my bet is in the future, major ecosystem will have also workflow builder inside them. If you are familiar with the cloud ecosystem or the ChatGPT for work ecosystem, you can schedule tasks, for example, to happen at a certain time and a certain part of the day, okay? This is the beginning of what a workflow builder is. You can schedule things to happen automatically in a repeated way, okay? But as of today, August 2026, the solution to build workflow still lives outside outside the major LLM ecosystem, in the case of this example, Claude. So now we finished the introduction. Unless there is any question, I don't know, Ankit, if there are any other questions which I didn't address, we would get to showing a bit more things live. So please let me know if there's any question maybe in the Q&A section which I didn't address yet.
Sure. There is one question from Beneath. How can we implement agent AI in monitoring tools for log analysis?
Sorry, I didn't get it. Let me open it. How can we implement agent AI monitoring tools for log analysis? In general, it depends when you hold your log analysis. I'm not an expert in this very specific fields, but if you have if your log analysis lives somewhere in an external tool, the first step would be, hey, I'm taking the ecosystem which I use, being Claude or ChatGPT, I will connect it with where the log lives, and then I would teach Claude through a skill how to do the most part of in monitoring these tools. Okay, so you would connect the tool with the Claude, and then after you have connected with Claude, you will teach it how you like to do the monitoring, when the monitoring needs to happen, and so on and so forth. Okay, one more time, I'm not an expert in monitoring tools for log analysis. Okay, that's really not my field of expertise, but in general, the process you would always follow, hey, I have information that lives in a tool, I'm going to try and connect that tool with Claude. The connection could be very easy, and I'll show you in a second how easy it looks like, or could be more complex, okay? And instead of one single step, there would be multiple steps which you need to follow to be able to connect that process. In all of these cases, regardless, this could be definitely done both with a workflow and with a delegation of one-off tasks. In this particular case, I would probably be in these very complex logs where there are many different type of information. I would opt for a one-off task delegation rather than a workflow, because I want the AI to have more determinism in understanding what's happening at which point. Any other question, Ankit?
One more questions we have. If I connect my personal Gmail to Claude, will be there any privacy issues? How agent is created? Example to implement in my day-to-day life.
In general, consider that regarding all of the safety questions, I always say, hey, first of all, you have a framework in your mind to decide if a technology provider is worthy of your trust or not. Okay, when you decide whether you want to use Apple or when you want to use Google, for example, for Gmail, you are literally giving away all of your information to those providers. Okay, they have your bank, all of your email, etc., etc. For example, Google already has access to all of the information you share with via Gmail. Okay. So framework number one, step number one is, do I trust the provider? For me, and it depends on the regulation of your country as well, but for me, all of the major LLM providers are more than trustworthy in terms of they are super regulated, they are super heavily monitored, and everything they publish, they work a lot to make sure that your information are secure. Especially if you are on a team plan, all of your information, all of the information you share, Claude will never use for training of the models, okay? Which is what really matters for you. None of the information you share, none of the tasks you perform with Gmail connected to Claude will be used for training. Also, there is a very strict policy data retention policy, okay? Depending on what type of license you are on, Claude will only retain on their servers your data for X amount of time, and then it's forced to cancel them. Okay, so in general, again, I would tell you, hey, you can trust, especially if you're on a team or an enterprise plan, which someone has already negotiated and thought about these issues before. You shouldn't be worried about privacy. Yes, so now we're going to see some stuff live, okay? So I see Mohammed is asking for more examples, but we can see them live, okay? So I'm going to mostly exemplify during this session delegation of one-off task. I'm going to do it using Claude. Just note that if you don't use Claude, you can replicate all of what we are seeing now on the screen with any of the other providers, right? The paradigm, the way of interacting with this type of copilots are always the same, okay? So I'm going to be showing you some stuff live. We'll start from something simple, and then we'll get to something more complex where you're looking for a more sophisticated output. And then if we have time, I will also show you an example of a workflow, a simple workflow, which you can create for, for example, the one we mentioned before about invoices. So the first thing I want to show you, and I'm going to open Claude. You just need to have access to one of these LLM provider, be it Claude or OpenAI for work, and you need to be on a paid plan, right? So to be able to do all of this, you need to be on a paid plan. It can be the $18, $20 plan, the entry plan for the both of them, okay? But by using a paid plan, you're able to, for example, build custom skills, which is how you teach Claude or the LLM in general how to do a specific task. So the first thing I want to do today is I want to show you how you can build an agent skill to help you triage your email inbox. Something super simple, okay? But is just to get started, then I'll show you something more complex, okay? So whenever you want to interact with a third-party tool, someone asked you before about the logs and someone asked about Gmail, the first thing you need to do is work with the setting of your LLM provider and connect the external tool with the LLM provider you use. So I'm using Claude. In Claude, this is done through the section Customize. If I click on Customize and look down for connectors, I will be able to connect Claude with any of the tools which I have in my tech stack. And this is a super simple connection. Claude has already vetted and approved a lot of providers. For example, you can see here right at the top, I can connect it via Gmail, I can connect it with the Google Drive, I can connect with Microsoft 365, okay? This is a super simple connection, as in you will click on the plus here, and then after you click on the plus, Claude will prompt you to authenticate yourself, which means you have to log in with the platform, and then the platform are connected. This is super cool because once you have connected the platform, and you can see here with the red tick, I see that my Gmail is already connected. I will be able to use all of the information I have on Gmail to perform any task. For example, if I want to review the email I received yesterday, I can do it, but you're not only able to extract information from the tool you have connected, you will also be able to write information in the tool. So for example, this doesn't only help you review the email, but can also help you draft responses. It can help you signal email as spam for those one you don't want. You don't have to open Gmail anymore. I can literally do everything through Claude. So let's make a concrete example, okay? And again, don't try and do it with me because I want to show you a bunch of stuff. This is all something you will receive after, so don't worry. It's most important that you understand and get inspiration for what you can do. So here I'm opening a new task in Claude Cowork. And once I open a new task, I'm asking, hey, can you connect and check all of the emails that I received yesterday and classify them based on importance, urgency, the email that are spam, and then I also want him to give me a list of action items included in the specific email. So what Claude does is it connects with my Gmail. You can see here in connector in the context section that it used Gmail, and it can see that yesterday I received 22 inbound emails across all of my account. These are the most important one that I should be careful about. Zoom storage is a 98%. I have a call schedule, and I have an email regarding a payment for one of the services I have provided. Here, if I click on the attachment, basically the final document has created, it creates a summary of everything which is important and urgent, important but not urgent, low priority promotional newsletter, and then spam. Okay, so I have already a good picture. I understand, hey, Claude can really extract all of this information from me, but then I want to do something additional. I want Claude to help me identify the one for which Claude has already enough information about me to draft a response and pre-draft what I will actually send to the user. And I also want him to highlight and help me signal as spam those emails which are really only called outbound. Okay, so after Claude does the task of extracting those information and presenting them to me, I want him to take action on the platform. I want to identify and draft the one he can already respond. Claude has already a lot of context about me. I provided a lot of content. I structure folders where he can find information. So for a lot of emails, he can already able to draft a response. And I also want to signal like spam. I don't want to receive email from these people anymore because they have been doing cold outbound. So Claude goes ahead, he creates a draft for this specific person, identify this email as the only one he could respond out of the 20 I received today. And then he marked as spam 2 emails which I received, which were clearly spam. And then I want to check with him one more time, is there any other response you can draft? It tells me not really, these are 2 options, but I wouldn't do it. Okay, so I went through all of this process. If I open my Gmail, on my account, on my connected account, I should be able to see in the draft that he has drafted the email for this very specific person. So you can actually see that he performs task. Okay, this is the guy he identified, Inigo. I can see here, I can see his response, and then this is the response that Claude drafted for me. I can decide to send, I can edit it. This Claude has done directly, okay? I didn't touch Gmail. I can just come here and see the email with the draft, which Claude can already respond. Once you have gone through this process once and you have understood, hey, this is how the connector works, this is what I can do. Let's suppose this is a task you do every day. Every day you want to go through the process of reviewing the email, understanding the one you can draft, spamming the one you don't want to receive anymore. Once you have done through this process, what you can tell Claude is, hey, Claude, can you help me turn this process into a skill called email triage? Okay, so Claude will take the context of all of this conversation which we had, in this case it's only 3 back and forth, but he will take all of the context of this conversation and will turn it into what's called a skill. A skill is how you teach Claude the process you like to perform in order to do a task. Okay, so if I want to create a presentation and I create it without a skill, Claude will create a very generic presentation. If I want to create a presentation and Claude has a very, very defined skill about how I personally create presentation, it will create a presentation that really speaks to me and will really perform the task. In the same way here, if we weren't to do this process with AI, if I just ask Claude, hey, I just want you to triage my email, he will come up with whatever triage you can think of. While my triage always needs to happen in the same way for it to be useful for me as an operator. So once I go through this process, what Claude does is Claude creates a skill. Then you are able to, if you click on it, you're able to see that your skill lives in your account. And you can see here the email triage skill. The email triage skill is the exact codification of the process which we have defined today. Phase 1 pull, use the Gmail connector, search thread of the last day. Phase 2, classify, important and urgent, not urgent, low priority, promotion, newsletter, spam and noise, exactly the characteristic which we have defined. Then define the action items. Then draft, never send, create a Gmail draft to let the user review, and then spam, ask first to the user. So I'm building myself into this process. I'm building a human in the loop. So many things I don't want him to just do. I want him to help me get to the results faster, but I'm still in control. It's not a super structured process. Every time you need to take decision. So I still want to be involved. Okay. Next time I want to perform this task, instead of having to go through this back and forth again, I will just open a new task and I will tell him, use the email triage skill. Okay, so I will just tell him use the email triage skill. He will know the process which I have defined because it's codified in the skill. Based on those information, he will do the process of screening my specific email. And something cool is, if you want to, you can also decide to schedule this process to happen automatically, okay, every day. Say you want to do it every day, After you have created, you will go to schedule and you will tell him, or you will tell him in the same chat, hey, I want you to schedule it. And then it will create what's called a daily email check that use the process you have defined and runs it. And I can go here. It runs it daily at 1 p.m. or it can be, I don't know, weekly at the end of the week, a summary of the email. You can define what you want. I'm just trying to exemplify some of the things you could do. You do the process once. Once you finish the process, you turn it into a skill, so Claude knows exactly how you like that process to be done. Once you have that, you can either run it manually whenever you want to. You see, hey, I've received 100 emails yesterday. I need to, prioritize spam, etc., etc. I'm going to use the email triage. And just as an example, this was an example with your email inbox, but you can also do it with your calendar, for example. Instead of triaging your email, you would be able to triage your calendar and tell me, hey, whenever I want to, and I think I had an example, I want to, at the beginning of the week, analyze my week and say, when I have external meetings with who, and if I had any email exchange with that person, I could just ask Claude to run the scheduled task, which is my calendar triage every Monday. And then it tells me, hey, on Thursday, you have this meeting with this person. On Friday, you have these 2 meetings, etc., etc. So it helps me get a hold of all of the information I have externally of Claude inside my specific account. I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple more examples, and then I will get back and I want to leave at least 10 minutes just for Q&A at the end. And then I'm also happy to stay 10 more minutes if you guys can, and I can respond to additional questions. The 2 things which I wanted to show you were, okay, this was an example with Gmail, very simple, but something really useful which add a lot of value for me, and I still want to do with a copilot, someone that assists me, but it doesn't always happen in the same way. Hey, every time I have a call with a potential customer, let's suppose you're in sales or you have external meeting, I will record that call. I will record the call with the specific tool you use for call recording. Let's say in my case, it's called Fathom, but you could use Granola or whatever other call recording tool you use. And then you would go to the connectors. You would go to Add, you would go to Browse Connector, you would look for your own call recorder. In my case, it's called Fathom. You can see here is connected. And whenever I perform an external call with someone external, I have created a skill to help me create a follow-up email. Whenever I have an external facing call, I want to send a follow-up, okay? So this happens in the way I have created the skill with the process we've seen before. In this case, I want to show you the skill creation process. The skill is already created. The skills define exactly what it needs to do. It needs to use the connectors. It needs to find the call, step number 1, pull the content, build the 3 sections behind the scene, write in Ara's voice, get approval in the chat, thread it into Gmail. So basically the process it follows is I have an external call. I want to send a follow-up email. I'll come to Claude and I'll tell him, hey, I want to, let me close this. I want to run the follow-up skill on my latest commercial call. It goes through the process of finding my commercial call. Then it reads the transcript of that call. It helps me identify, based to the specific structure which I define, which is always the same, what we discussed, next steps, and then my signature. And it goes through a process of using the transcript to draft the email. And then it will, again, include this email into the draft of my Gmail. So I can basically connect all of this information and have a follow-up call already drafted. When I created the skill, I also gave the skill example of good emails which I wrote previously. Okay, so this is the really important process that you need to follow, that I personally want to follow. To show you one last demonstration, then again we'll get back to the Q&A. We can also work on more complex tasks, as in the result is not going to be the preparation of an email. The results should be the analysis of a really complex data survey with a lot of information and the production of an Excel file that summarizes information and a presentation, okay? To do this, which is something I do a lot, I run a lot of courses. The course have hundreds of people taking them. All of these people always leave reviews. I want to analyze their view to find for common pattern of, okay, what do people want to learn? What am I doing great? What am I doing not great, which I could improve? And then I can basically, the process of going through this is, oh, wait, sorry, I'm showing the wrong one here. He is just by telling them, hey, I wanted to use this information to generate the funnel presentation. In this case, I'm prompting with a much longer prompt, and I'm telling, hey, you have some survey results. I include them into the working folder where I'm working with Cloud Cowork. I'm going to tell him, basically, in this, I'm explaining exactly what I want him to do with this information. I want him to finalize this. I want him to put everything to an Excel report, including visualization. I want him to separate the sheets, key stats, the team. So I describe what I want in the end. And then I also want him to build a PowerPoint deck with the style of this very specific company. So I want him to understand the style of that company by browsing to their website, taking screenshots and using them as a design reference, and generate a presentation in that style. What Claude does is, using Cowork, it generates a plan of what it needs to do, and then it goes through the process of analyzing all of those information. So you can see that there were 115 reviews in this time period. All of the 92 were 5-star, others were lower stars. And then it finds and gives me a bunch of information here. But what's really important is it generated the Excel file. So I should be able to see here the Excel file. I can see the overall rating. I can see the cohort breakdown. I can see the key themes that were mentioned in the review, practical real workflows, skill section stand out, etc., etc. I can see the improvement signals. Many people mentioned the homework link didn't link correctly to the right section in Maven, etc., etc. And then I have potential for upselling. What other things do they want to learn? What type of product are they trying to create? Okay, so basically it creates a nice report, and then it creates a presentation. This is a presentation in PowerPoint format. You can ask it in whatever format you want. So it gives the same information present in a presentation. What I notice here is that it didn't use the right design style. So something went wrong. So I'm going to tell him, hey, I want to use the PMA design style. I tell him, okay, here is browsing to the specific website using the Claude Chrome integration, which is something you can set up in your Claude account as well in your ChatGPT for work. It goes through the process of re-understanding their style. And then once it has finished understanding their style, it will give me the presentation all over again with the style which I requested. Okay, so in this case, we can see that this is their specific style. The problem here is whenever he updates the same file with the same file name, like we had before, it updates all of them. Okay, so imagine the presentation before was not on their style. This iteration, this that we are seeing now, is the actual PMA style that they are using. And once I finish going through the process of defining what we want to do, we'll tell him, hey, create a skill based on this, or update the skill if you already had the skill and you just made a couple of changes. And basically this will generate an updated skill that has all of the information which we are looking for, right? So one more time, I will go to my customize section. I will see all of this process defined here with all of the details about how it needs to do, what's the visual style. So next time you want to create a presentation for the same client with the same style, analyzing the same information, you will be able to do it without the need of driving it through step by step. You still need to review, you still need to tell him I want to create, you'll still be able to give feedback, but you will get to a finalized task, the creation of a presentation in the report, much, much faster. Just to close, I wanted to show you one example of a workflow. And let me see if I have it here. Here we go. Sorry, this was the email. Okay, this is the exact example which we were mentioning before. Hey, whenever I receive an email and the email has contains inside invoice in the subject line, okay, contains invoice, the next step will be I want you to analyze it and extract the following information. If it's an incoming invoice, If it's not an incoming invoice, I want to understand the vendor name, the amount, the currency, the due date, the invoice paid, etc., etc. And then based on this information, if it's an incoming invoice, I wanted to add it to the specific Google Sheet. And then what Claude does is goes through this process of defining all of the steps and add the additional information in my Google Sheet to track my expenses. Okay, this is obviously just an exemplification. In this case, much less creative, much more structure, always happening the same way. I want to define deterministically what happens at what point. Again, I told you the session was going to be intense. I hope you could extract value. I always try to give you as many examples, as much value as possible. And now I'm happy to dedicate as much time as needed to respond to all of your questions. If you need to leave, you can obviously leave. Nobody's forcing you to stay, but if you can stay and the Ethika team will allow us, we can stay a couple more minutes. I'm just going to paste in the chat also the links to connect with me. You can send me an email if you need clarification, if you want to work together, if you want corporate training, happy to go through all of the information with you. Otherwise, if you just want to follow my educational content, I put all of the link in the chat and the Ethika team will also send it to you. But let's get back to some Q&A. Ankit, maybe do you want to select the question? I see there are a lot. Let me start
I think,
from...
Pedro, there is one person who raised their hand. I will allow them to talk with you.
Yes.
Ashwini, you
Sure.
You can.
Absolutely.
Ashwini, you are now able to talk with Pedro. Or if
Ashwini?
anyone wants to talk with Pedro, please raise your hand. I will allow to speak with him. Or if you can drop your questions in the chat box as well.
Okay, so while Ashwini gets ready, I'm going to start taking some questions from the audience in the chat. Sushil, hopefully I'm pronouncing the names correctly, is asking, with Anthropic introducing watermarking or provenance signal for Claude-generated content, how do you see this affecting organizations that use Claude for drafting and content creation? Are there recommendation ways to ensure AI assist content still maintains a natural human writing style without compromising transparency? So the question for me, it's not really whether Claude will watermark it or not, which commercially for company won't change anything, right? The thing you should be focusing on is to teach Claude how you like to write. If the content is useful, if the content is valuable, if the content achieves the goal for which the content is being created, it doesn't matter if he has a watermark or not, like it really doesn't impact at all. The only thing you should be focusing on is teaching Claude how you like to write, give him an example, building skills that resemble how you like to write and what you like to do. Ramesh is asking, can Claude send messages to mobile? For example, if an email in Gmail account is marked as urgent and not replied, the email within an hour, and message will be sent to phone. So you can definitely send messages to your Slack, for example, okay? I'm not sure, there probably is some integration with which you can send it to a phone number, but I'm not aware of it. I bet if you were to look really, you would find it. But for example, you could set up Slack on your phone, activate notification on Slack, and then have Claude send you a message on Slack just by using the Slack integrator connector. Man is asking, how often do you have to edit the skill Claude creates for you because it didn't really replicate your workflow? So consider a skill is never a one-off. You're not creating a skill and, okay, that's it, I'm never going to touch it. It's an iteration process like any other software product. Consider it as a very simple software product which you can create and update with natural language. You create it by showing how you like to do things. Once it exists, every time you need to make an edit, you just need to tell Claude, hey, update this skill. I'm not sure if someone is speaking.
Yeah.
Arti?
Yeah. Arti is there. Hi, Arti.
Hi. I wanted to ask this question that is there any free videos that I can go through to learn Claude and implement those videos into my workplace? So I am basically new to Claude and I want to learn it as quicker and faster.
So there are two options, right? The free option, which is always available, is you can spend a lot of time on YouTube. Okay, this will help you in many ways, but you'll need to spend a lot of time there. Personally, I run a course on Claude, right? So my response is obviously biased here in terms of a lot of people take the course, and the course is exactly supposed to do that. If your company supports and pay for it, it obviously makes sense. It's not a cheap course, but if it's for example for your entire team, it can amortize. And I also do custom company training. And one more time, I will put the link of the course here. You can take a look. But in general, you can spend much more time, but do it for free on YouTube. It's something you can definitely do. Okay, so I just want to put it out there that this is an option which you can use, or go through a paid route where you take a trainer that is experienced in Claude, and you bring yourself, your team, or first yourself, and then you bring it to all of your team. And this could be a good approach. Okay, just trying to outline the options which you have.
Thank you.
Someone else, sorry, let me go back to the question. Do we have event-based trigger in Claude? No, for this reason, we are differentiating between workflow and one-off task assistance. Okay, what we have seen in Claude, most of the first three things, the one you see here on the screen, we all need to either schedule, which is a not reliable way for a task to happen, or if not schedule, you would need to run them manually. Okay, to have something completely automated that follows event-based trigger, you need a workflow tool, Zapier, N8N, or there are many other out there in the market. Rajan is asking, can you show an example such a skill for LinkedIn? For LinkedIn, I use it to help me create content. For example, I specifically use it to help me create hooks. Let me see if I can find a LinkedIn hook generator. Like, it helps me follow a specific process I use to craft and design hook to get to a final hook, which eventually could work better for me. I use it also a lot to review my performance on LinkedIn. So if I go to customize and I scroll to some of my skills, I'm gonna see a LinkedIn post reviewer to review how my specific post performed and what I could do better next time. Arun is asking, can we not connect Claude with Zoom to record, or maybe make meeting briefs? Yes, you could definitely connect it with Zoom. Absolutely, just like we connected it to Google Calendar or Google Gmail. You would go to customize, you would go to connectors, and then you would just look for Zoom. Okay, Rajan is asking, okay, the same question as above, skill for LinkedIn. Art is asking, is there a non-chargeable education video I can learn Claude? Again, for non-chargeable, you would need to just use YouTube as much as possible. Okay, it's just a longer journey. You would find good stuff. Generally, it's going to be a small pillar, right? So you need to have a focus of, hey, where do I want to start? What do I need to do? But then you will be able to find also free stuff on YouTube or on newsletters. Is a similar skill function there in ChatGPT? Absolutely. It's actually the same exact process. It's called the skill creation process. And the paradigm and the type of document that are used by ChatGPT for work and that are used for Claude are absolutely the same. So if you create a skill in Claude, you can also transfer it to ChatGPT for work. Important, you need to be working in ChatGPT for work, not the standard commercial ChatGPT. Is Claude Workflow module same as Claude Coding? No. Claude Cowork is a different interface, okay? So if I open my Claude here, and I close this page, sorry, I just closed it, let me open it again. So when I'm in Claude, you'll see here I have my homepage. In the homepage, I can either access the chatbot or Cowork, okay? And this is completely separate from Claude Code, okay? Fundamentally, just to boil it down to the simpler definition, Claude Cowork is the version of Claude Code for non-technical people. It has 98% of the capability of Claude Code, but it's built for internal productivity rather than for shipping software. Automation, the post-creation analysis, what post is valid, researching on a few hot topics which can add value to the audience. Rajan, yes, these are all good examples of skill you can build in Claude. These are not workflow. They are they require the AI to be able to take decision on your behalf and also require your internal direction and creativity to be really valuable. So definitely something you can do, but you would be able to do it with Claude skills, for example, or with ChatGPT skills. Anusha, as informed, if we connect Gmail to Claude or ChatGPT, does all my data is viewed by ChatGPT because I want all my Gmail data should be confidential. First off, your Gmail data is not confidential in the sense Google has access to 100% of your Gmail data. Just FYI, okay? Past that, as I mentioned before, in general, if you are on a paid license, especially if you are on a team or an enterprise, Claude will never use your data to train the models. This means it lives in their server because it needs to live somewhere, but it's not used for training, which means they will not access it, will not be used to train the models, and nobody will ever read it. So you can be chill with that. Ankit, what is the difference between workflow skills and AI agents? How can I create a bunch of agents which interact with each other and perform complex tasks? So, okay, this is a very complex question. There are many questions inside. So let me answer to the other one, and actually, no, let me take it. So AI agent is just a piece of software that takes decision by himself and perform tasks on your behalf. Okay, technically there is not a one univocous definition of AI agent. Okay, it's a term which everybody uses for whatever they want. Okay, so I would strongly tell you don't focus on the specific definition because it doesn't really matter. Okay, in general you can call you can call workflow and skills as part of agents, or a sub part of agents. Okay, there are pieces of software that take decision on your behalf and perform tasks on your behalf. Okay, in a workflow, the difference from a workflow to a skill is in a workflow you define every single step and you define exactly what every single step of that process will do. In a skill, you do the same thing, but instead of defining into steps, you define it in a piece of text, what is comparable to an SOP, a standard operating procedure. Okay, so you codify it, and with a skill, the AI has much more freedom to take their own decision along the process, while with the workflow, every single step is encoded and it's structured to happen in a very specific way. Okay, so just the difference, and we mentioned at the beginning, if you skip the beginning, I recommend maybe rewatch it later. The difference is the level of determinism between the two. Someone is asking for the course details. I'm also going to paste the links again. Here you'll find my next live course, my LinkedIn profile if you want to connect, my email as well, my website if you want to check some of the training we've done in the past. Okay, so I just put it in the message for anybody who wants either my email, the next course with the detail, etc., etc. In general, the course is basically bringing you through, hey, you're using the chatbot to, hey, you're using the full Claude ecosystem, you're automating your work, you're having multiple agents working together, right? That is the goal. Over 10 days, exactly what we will do is we bring you from, hey, you're just using the chatbot to, you're using everything, every feature built for non-technical people inside Claude at a really professional level. Neat is asking, in terms of productivity and work on scripts, how efficient Claude is. Do we have any specific connectors? I'm sorry, Nitin, I don't really understand the question. Maybe you can either speak or unmute yourself or retype it because I really don't understand what you're asking. Abhishek is asking, after this development in AI, what do you think will AI... Sorry, I don't understand this question either. Okay, how basically the question from Abhishek is how will AI change our day-to-day even more? I think eventually the model will get better and better. It will be more important for people, for workers to be able to manage, okay, to be team managers, okay? What I mean by that is even if you are an individual contributor, you will need to start thinking as a manager, okay? You're not going to be doing all of your work by yourself. You need to be able to handle the AI to help you along the process of making decisions and performing tasks. So even if you are a junior hire or if you are an individual contributor and currently don't have a team for yourself, you need to start thinking about acting more of a manager and less doing the task all yourself. This is to say, hey, you're going to have to shift your mentality from I'm managing my own time, from managing my own time and the AI credits, the AI I have available, so you can expand the amount of work and the level of productivity which you have. In terms of huge upgrades of our life, honestly, I have no idea. I'm a very practical person. I always deal with very practical situation and practical teams to make them work better and smarter. But no, at no point I aspire or I think I am a technology or someone who can tell you which direction the technology will take. Where can we connect? Sushil, I put all of the links right above your message. Let me paste it one more time. Email, please. Thank you. Baran missed the first half of this webinar. Yes, it's recorded. The Ethika team hopefully will send it out to everyone. Oh, my messages are not visible. Ankit, maybe could you send my message yourself? Because I see people are not being able
Just
to
a
see.
second, you are sending to host and panelists. I'll make it to everyone. Yeah, now it is.
Perfect. So, sorry, I thought you could see my messages. Now, Ankit has put all of the links so you can connect, you can check the courses, you can see my email, etc., etc. No, I see the Friday musing poll. Someone said that the quality of the question of the session was poor. 3 people said the quality of the question was poor. I'm very sad to hear. I will do better. Feel free to send me additional feedback so I can improve the quality of my sessions. I know the pace of the session is fast. Okay, you will be able to have the recording and you will be able to follow through the recording. I prefer to condense more content so that more people find it useful. In general, it's a style. Decision which I have taken. I've run this year. I think I've run over 60 live webinars hosting more than 50,000 people. And this is the format that gave the most value to the people and people could retain the most value. Thank you, Rajan. I really appreciate your message. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I think we went through all of the questions. I don't know if someone has an additional one. I still have 4 minutes before my next live session, which will last for 2 hours.
I think everyone questions is answered, Pitro, and thank you so much everyone who attended for today's session. And I would like to request my teammate Pooja. She has something to say to all the audience. Pooja, go ahead.
Hello everyone, good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes. Hi everyone, my name is Pooja. I'm a psychologist from Mumbai. Okay, so basically, the reason I connected this meeting because we are Ethika is providing the group sessions and the group support programs for the multiple people and the vendors. So we run the therapist-led online quit smoking program support group for the adults, especially like us people, a warm, judgmental, and free space where people understand their smoking and the changes their own pace. So, with the support, rather than not only with the psychologist but with the peer counselor, we are bringing up the program where people can settle in the group session and they can discuss however they want to be, right? So, this is my small request, you guys. Please join the session if you needed this. Okay, I shared in the group again. Ankit also shared again. Yeah. So we are supporting the multiple groups like Healthy Minds, Conscious Parenting, Employees Engagement with Purpose, Motherhood Support, Quit Smoking Program, and Meditation. But you can newly we launched a quit smoking program. If you are finding difficulty to join or you're finding difficulty to quit smoking, please do join this group. Okay.
Pooja, and back to Pitro. Thank you so much, Pitro, for taking this session for all of us. And I would like thank to all those audience who have joined for today's sessions, to Friday sessions, especially in the afternoon. So thank you so much, everyone. Once again, I have a fantastic weekend ahead. Go automate something, and we will see you at the next one. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah.